Open Your Eyes is brought to you by the Belize Bank. Our country, your bank.
Good morning and welcome to Open Your Eyes.
Start your morning right.
I'm April Martinez.
And I am Isani Kayatano.
And good morning. It's October. I'm happy. I'm excited for October. I am. I love Halloween. But no, it's October.
Halloween is all the way at the end of the month,
yes,
though, so you still have several weeks to go.
But it's the, like, it's not the day. It's like, it reminds me of how we celebrate Christmas. It's the days and the events. Just like September celebration, it's the days and the events that lead up to the actual day. And then nobody actually celebrates the day. What you do the 21st? Sleep. Nobody actually celebrates. It's the days leading up. So that is what I'm looking forward to.
You reserve your humble opinion in saying that. As other people do really celebrate
the day. I suppose. But I think it's the anxious excitement to get to the day. That's the feeling of
the build up.
The build up of all.
Yeah, I get you.
How was the weekend? It's not as exciting as last weekend, man. I'm very hopeful.
The weekend was great. I mean, I can't complain. I always look forward to, either being at home over the weekend or spending time with friends and family.
Yeah.
That's a huge part of, my life outside of work.
When the news hits, when I don't get like breaking news during the weekend, what happens? Do you have to go immediately and do a report, or do you?
Not really. It depends on the gravity of the situation. And then a call would have to be made at that point as to how we go about deploying resources to that situation, right? Many people would think that reporters, and I'm speaking Channel 5 personnel, work on the weekend or we're on call or what have you. Ideally, it should be that way, but logistically and otherwise, there are certain considerations, right? There are times when we do have more than eventful weekends.
Yeah.
There are other times when there's a lull. And so you have to weigh things accordingly. I'll give you an example. The weekend of the Belize International Music and Food Festival was also the weekend of the mass shooting event in Hopkins.
Right.
And so when we woke up that Sunday morning and realized what had happened, an initiative had to be taken there and then to be able to respond to what had happened overnight in Hopkins.
Yeah.
And so that's how we go about dealing with
news over the weekend.
Yeah, and like I said, it depends on the gravity of the situation. Because for argument's sake, if there was a murder in Punta Gorda on Saturday or Sunday, then we would have to actually look at, the circumstances and, the broader impact of it before we were able to say, well, we're going down there now. Other than that, we usually schedule things out so that we're able to respond during the normal course of the business week, primarily the first day of the week, if that were the case.
I always imagine that when news reporters, not just Channel 5, but news reporters throughout Belize, it's the limitation of personnel to cover six districts is you can tell. I mean, how do you cover news if something happened at PG and then something happened at Carrizal simultaneously? How do you maneuver and manage that?
Well, that's a good question, right? I believe ours, if you're looking at the newsroom itself, ours is arguably the biggest newsroom in terms of the number of reporters and cameramen assigned to doing just that. But if you look at overall personnel spread out across the country, then that would be Love FM. They have correspondents, you know.
Throughout.
Part of what other bigger stations do, they employ what are called stringers, right? People who do media work, but either on an informal basis or on a freelance capacity, so that whenever there's something that's happening that is local to them, they're able to provide the coverage and then relate on to the news station, right? We're not there yet. Fortunately, Belize is small enough that we can deploy and reach any part of the country within a fairly reasonable time. And in certain cases, again, depending on the weight of the situation, we spare no expense in getting the story done. So that's one good thing.
I always ask, because we sit here, we do Eye on the News, and we have to cover not just what, you know, occurred maybe last week or on the weekend. And I always wondered how you even managed to. So he signed to take his relaxation pan the hammock, right? And then mass shooting happened. What are what process do you go through, to get from, all right, I have to get out of my hammock now and make my way to Hopkins? You know,
well,
it's that is what I think about.
If I could recall and reflect back on that particular situation, again, this happened overnight, right? So there's no possible way that we would have been able to respond at midnight or shortly after 12, you know, when the thing actually happened. But when we woke up that Sunday morning, there was chatter on the internet. There were text messages and phone calls being made, etc., in respect of that particular incident. So in a sense, it was a no-brainer, because you know that, you know, there is a lot of traction surrounding that particular incident, and it had to have been dealt with as urgently as possible. We say urgently as possible because, again, specific to that particular incident, police were still on the ground that morning doing their investigation, canvassing, and all these other aspects of what they do as detective work. And so when we arrived there, the officers were still very much on the ground carrying out their work. And so that's a huge part of being able to tell the story, right? It's not as if though we arrived to a scene that has already been processed and no one was around, and it would have posed a challenge to find people who were there when it happened. When you get there, either in the nick of time or while people are still on the ground moving around, you're able to get a better sense of what transpired. And so in that particular case, a decision was made. I made that decision, and that's how we ended up down in Hopkins and provided that story.
How do you compete? Well, not compete, but how do you then canvas like international news and then pick out the ones that you think are most important or viable to Belizean society?
I think in our newsroom, and for speaking for myself as well, there are certain news feeds that you tap into. So you do get updates from CNN, Yahoo, and all these other, and that's how I do it, right? And things that are relevant, either based on the region or based on international ramifications, or things that affect Belizeans in the diaspora. Because there are times when Belizeans in the diaspora may not be affected en masse, but you do have stories where someone got killed in LA, or something happened here, or this Belizean person started a business and they're featuring that in the. So you do tap into that kind of news feed, and then we're able to pick it up from there. Naturally, we try our best to be able to localize it as well. So while the individual or the individuals may be living abroad for many years, perhaps they still do have family in Belize that we could get in contact with, and then kind of, you know, draw that together.
I mean, I saw that, especially when we were talking about natural disasters and, you know, Hurricane Ian in Florida. And I think Sabrina did her On the Bright Side from in the diaspora with this young girl that is Belizean, living in the United States. Yes, the 11-year-old MMA fighter, because that is now something that we're tapping into. So I ask these elements not because I'm nosy or anything, but
feel free to ask. I mean, you're
the
getting
media is new to me, so I always
you're getting
wonder.
a front row seat. That a lot of times people see us at work, you know, in the thick of things, but they don't get the opportunity or the chance to ask us, how does this work?
How do you do your job, Isani, is my question. No, it's interesting because I feel that when we as Belizeans, you know, you at home, we wake up, we turn on the news, and we expect to be either entertained with events or entertained with facts, or we want to see some level of dispute being unfolded on TV.
There's a three-pronged approach to being able to convey items of news value, right? You're either setting out to inform, to educate, or to entertain. And entertainment is lower on that rung, so to speak, right? The first objective is to be able to inform people of what is happening. And if you're not already informed or you have a vague idea, then the second aspect of it is to educate you as to what took place and how it affects you. The third aspect, to entertain, is not all news are heavy news items, right? You want to be able to mix the light with the dark, so to speak. That's the final aspect of it. More often than not, however, we go with the hard news items because those are the stories that hit you direct, they're happening now, and what have you.
I mean, media literacy is important. Ethics in media, I could go on and on, but we have a show to do.
I'll leave you one final thing since you're asking about how the media works and how reporting works, right? I think after having so many years of experience under my belt and receiving the accolades that I've had over the years, I think my pet peeve is when people approach me and say, why don't you ask a hard question? Or why don't you guys ask hard questions? There's no such thing as a hard question, right?
What is a hard question?
There's no such thing as a hard question. Look, if you're going to ask a question, you have to be able to approach from an informed perspective. And so that guides the way you phrase your question, that guides the way you center the objective of that particular question. And so then it is up to that individual to be able to respond accordingly. But there's also what we call an approach. Speaking for myself, I don't believe in backing people into a corner, right? I've always had this mindset that you attract flies with honey, not with vinegar. So if I want to extract information from you, I have a more persuasive, charismatic approach to dealing with information versus someone else who feels as if though they're coming out of the gate kicking and screaming and punching, and then they expect you to respond to that. Then you realize why people are adversarial in interview scenarios, because you put them in a corner. Right? And it's just a matter of technique. I mean, mine is different than others, and so on and so forth.
I didn't think about it, but even when guests come on the show and it's their first time and they're nervous and they're like, please don't ask me no hard questions. You know, I always say nobody knows the information more than you do. So what is a hard question? But I ask this and more because when we touch on Eye on the News, you know, I always wonder how you gather so much data so quickly in like 2 days so that we can talk about it here on Monday. But we will get into that later on with Eye on the News. But as we continue on the show, we hope we motivate you this morning to have these kinds of conversations and to think about investigations and research and journaling on a daily basis. We move into our eye opener for this morning, this lovely morning. Our eye opener is taken from dailyom.com, and it says, if we are to have true peace in the world, we must first find it within ourselves. Most people agree that a more peaceful world would be an ideal situation for all living creatures. However, we often seem stumped as to how to bring this ideal situation into being. If we are to have true peace in this world, each one of us must find it in ourselves first. If we don't like ourselves, for example, we probably won't like those around us. If we are in a constant state of inner conflict, then we will probably manifest conflict in the world. If we have fighting within our families, there can be no peace in the world. We must shine the light of inquiry on our internal struggles, because this is the only place we can really create change. Being at peace with ourselves is not about denying or rejecting any part of ourselves. On the contrary, in order to be at peace, we must be willing and able to hold ourselves in all our complexity in a full embrace that excludes nothing. This is perhaps the most difficult part for many of us, because we want so much to disown the negative aspects of our humanity. Ironically though, true peace begins with a willingness to take responsibility for our humanity, so that we might ultimately transform it in the light of our love. What do we think about it? I mean, if you are not happy and satisfied and at peace with yourselves, you can't be happy and satisfied with what you put out. You can't be happy and satisfied with the work that you do. You can't be happy and satisfied with the people around you. But I personally think that in itself is always going to be a process, right? Human beings are never just a one-dimensional thing. It's never one day we're going to find peace, and it's always going to be peaceful throughout our lifetime. You know, there's always going to be some sort of trial, some sort of, problem that we feel that it's going to wreck our peace, and it is up to us to make sure that we come back to it and find it again. It's going to
First of all, there's no such thing as absolute tranquility.
No.
Right? And so conflict exists for a reason. Yeah. And more often than not, you're faced with conflict. It's how you resolve conflict is what's the topic. I think that being able to find inner peace allows you then to radiate or project that to others.
Yeah.
Using myself as an example here, I realized, like, when I was younger, very hot-headed, hairpin trigger, things like that, right? And so we don't really take time to listen to ourselves in terms of how we would approach a situation. You just go from 0 to 100 and you don't want to hear anything from anybody, and you'll deal with it the way you deal with it, etc. But when you embark upon a journey to find yourself, either spiritually or emotionally or mentally, to fully embrace and realize who you are as a person, then it changes your perspective as to how you go about dealing with situations.
Yeah.
And so I personally, at my age and experiences that I've had, I'm more guided by peace and light than I am about anything else that would create or prolong a conflict, right? And so when I am able to do that, if I sit down and I think and I reflect, or if I'm praying, or if I'm just pondering, I'm able to find that inner tranquility. And once I'm able to find that, April, then I can radiate that to you, so that if you come with a certain energy, or if you are angry and your anger does not directly affect me, then I'm able to speak with you and calm you down. Right. And that's how you know.
I 100% agree, and I do think that when we radiate that emotion, whether it be peace or rage or frustration, it not just affects the person next to you, but it might shape the way the entire environment rolls out, and then I might feel restless because Isane is sitting next to me and I know he's frustrated, and I probably need him to help me with a problem, because he's frustrated, I would feel a way to go and ask, and so that kind of, sets the mood for the rest of the workday or the house. So, have that conversation, try to radiate some peace, try to radiate some light in your workspace or at home. And while we radiate some good news with the folks from the Met Service this morning to give it to you, Belize. Good morning.
Good morning, April and Isani. Good morning, my friends.
Hi, Catherine. How are you?
I am doing okay. I'm about in an hour time, close off, and I am leaving this place and going to my home.
All right. Well, before you do, can you please give us the general situation for today?
Of course. Okay, April and Nisani, what is affecting us now? We have a light northerly airflow prevailing. So when you get up this morning, you feel that cool air.
I had to pull the
but
sheet.
that as the day progresses, that changes a bit. It gets warmer and everything. But for the next 24 hours, we could expect sunny skies today with a few cloudy intervals. Hello, sorry about that.
Yes,
We're here.
yes, you're here.
Okay, the 24-hour forecast, we are looking at sunny skies today with a few cloudy intervals. And the high temperatures today, we can expect 87 along the coast, 90 inland, and 82 over the mountains. Tonight, the skies will be partly cloudy to cloudy, with low temperatures of 25 along the coast, 70 inland, and 66 in the higher elevation. Shower activity will be isolated today. You don't expect any significant shower so to affect the country. If any occur, it will be light shower, and we expect them to be mostly offshore. But for tonight, you could expect a few showers or light rain, along with a chance of an isolated thunderstorms developing mainly along the coast. The wind, and then, yes, that's for tonight and tomorrow morning. The winds will be coming out of the north to northwest, 5 to 10 knots, and the sea state will be slight. So continue to expect these light winds. Sea state, it's a nice time to go to the Keys. For tides, the outlook for Tuesday and Tuesday night, we can expect cloudy spells with a few showers or light rain during the daytime and increasing a bit more at night. In our sargassum forecast, there continues to be a medium chance of new sargassum mats will continue to land on our beaches during the next few days. And in the tropical weather outlook, tropical cyclone formation is not expected over the next 2 days.
Oh, wow.
So that's what I have for you guys.
That's awesome.
Any questions?
Any updates from the tropical storm that was in Florida?
No, that's already gone. That gone. That have became a remnant low and dissipate out. The National Hurricane Center have ended their advisory on that system.
Okay.
That is history now. All you have on that is just history.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Catherine.
You're welcome, my dear. Have a great day and stay safe.
You too.
All right. Well, I mean, she did say we could go to Key this week, so I'm assuming it's going to be positive. But of course, weather is unpredictable, as we know. So we'll be updating you all with more of that tonight in tonight's broadcast and tomorrow morning. But before we get into all of that, we're going to our Eye on the News for this morning.
On Friday, there was an announcement that a new U.S. ambassador to Belize had been confirmed, and this would be Melissa Kwan as our ambassador designate, in a manner of speaking. She succeeds the last U.S. ambassador to Belize that we've had, and it's been several years. If I'm not mistaken, the last actual ambassador who was here working out of Belize was former Justice Carlos Moreno. And when the Trump administration took over the U.S. government, we did not have an ambassador assigned to Belize. As a matter of fact, only Charge d'Affaires operated as the highest office at the embassy. And so Friday, when the announcement was made that we now have an ambassador who will be stationed in Belmopan and doing the work of the United States Embassy in Belize, it was welcome news, you know. On Saturday, we attended an event where our foreign minister was present. And since this is of a diplomatic nature, it was only fitting that we inquired about Belize's preparation and position in welcoming Miss Melissa Kwan as our new U.S. ambassador to Belize. And so we'll begin our Eye on the News segment by going to a brief interview that was held with Foreign Minister Eamon Courtney on Saturday with respect of this particular topic.
We look forward to her arrival. We have looked at her CV and her work. She is an experienced diplomat. Most people regard her as a sportswoman, as a medalist, and as a skier. But in fact, she has a tremendous amount of experience in diplomacy. I am sure that she will be an effective ambassador. We have been building on our relations with the United States. They are cordial, they are strong on different areas, and an ambassador in Belize is long overdue, so we look forward to receiving Ambassador Kwan.
Yeah.
So I'll correct myself briefly there. It's Ambassador Michelle Kwan. I don't know where my mind was with Melissa.
It's okay. I had misinterpreted the blip, but then when I saw the picture of the ice skating champ,
former ice skater.
Yes, former ice skating champ,
Yeah.
Michelle Kwan. But yes,
Yeah.
congratulations to her, and we look forward to working with her. But I think that I think it makes it surreal we're having this conversation because I still can't believe that for almost 5 years we didn't have an ambassador to Belize. And not that the U.S. Embassy was any at all not present, you know, of course, they were still definitely diplomatic relations between us and Belize. And of course, the many, many, many events and fundings and grants that the U.S. Embassy has provided over the years. It begs the question, the amount of work that she has cut out for her when she comes. Yeah.
Well, there's going to be a lot of catching up from that desk, if that were the case. But as the foreign minister said, they're looking forward to having her. And so the work of both countries as they do so hand in hand continues. So we move from there to another point of interest that we also spoke with Senator Courtney about on Saturday. If you've been following the news, you would realize that there has been an issue for several months, more so this year than perhaps in the past, where we have the influx of Cuban migrants into the country. And fairly recently, a group of them were nabbed in the area of El Pilar, near the western border in Cayo. And so it's an ongoing situation. And I think what compounds this entire issue is the fact that while the government of Belize, via the Immigration Department, is trying its best to be able to address the issue in terms of being able to find these individuals and being able to have them removed out of the country and returned back to their country of origin. The difficulty here, and this was a question that I actually posed to Senator Courtney as well, how do we repatriate Cubans back to Cuba in the face of all the difficulties that they are dealing with? And, you know, you can't send them through the United States because of the embargo, obviously, right? And so you have to put them on a charter, which comes at the expense of the government.
Yeah.
The government, according to Senator Courtney, has looked at various ways of being able to do this, sending them through Panama and Copa. There was an issue once with Cubans being sent back on a Copa flight where the pilot said, you know what, I can't do it. These people are, you know, unruly and you know, that sort of stuff. But so that poses a serious, you know, situation for the government of Belize and the Cuban government to work out in terms of repatriating these individuals once they have been busted in Belize for illegal entry or for, you know, staying longer than they ought to be in the country, whatever the case may be. So we have an interview with Senator Courtney that speaks in the round about the situation of Cuban migrants and others who have been coming through Belize, including Haitians as well. So we'll go to that interview now.
It's a problem. First of all, we have pending for October bilateral talks with Cuba on migration. in which we are going to take a deep dive into these issues and see how we can work together on that very important issue. Secondly, there are regional flows, and we have detected trends and the way in which these migrants move. And we have to work on a regional basis with the countries through which they are passing, countries which are facilitating them, to see whether we can come up with a common plan to try to stem the movement of illegal migrants, particularly the Cubans. We had a management meeting yesterday in the Ministry of Immigration, and we spent about 2 hours on this very topic, looking at the numbers, looking at the flows, looking at the persons in Belize who are facilitating this illegal trade. Some recommendations have been made, and a cabinet paper is being prepared to send to cabinet on this issue. The long and short of it is that we have noted a significant increase in the number of illegal and irregular migrants coming through Belize, Cubans being a significant increase. And so we are going to be talking with our colleagues, the Cuban government, as well as regionally, and we will have to put some measures in place in Belize to address the issue. The flows of Cubans has increased significantly given the challenges that are being experienced in Cuba. And we have stepped up our efforts in trying to catch these people, and not only Cubans, other nationalities as well. We have, for example, a significant increase of people from Africa, from West Africa, and that's a concern to us. And the ambassador for Ghana and the ambassador for Nigeria were here for the diplomatic week, and we had a discussion about that. They both promised to return to have in-depth discussions about how we can manage these flows.
So there's a report that indicates that this kind of activity has been on the rise, and it's a regional and a global trend. So it's nothing that is particularly only Belize, or if it's not unique only to Belize. It's happening within the region, and in some cases it's happening on an international scale.
It's not unique to Belize, but I will say that Belize itself geographically
Yes.
is in a unique position.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we
It
are
serves
that
as
bridge.
a way station.
Yes, and so it's not just that, but we have good standing diplomatic relations with all these countries, not, you know, United States, and despite our relationship with Guatemala and so forth, the people have a good relationship with us. We have the good diplomatic relations with Cuba and other Central American countries. So it puts us in this position of how are we going to strategically, and you know, hats off to Minister Courtney, because how are we going to strategically make sure that we are able to do right by everybody and keep in good standing with all diplomatic countries involved. It's not a position that I envy, because at the end of the day, with this large influx of Cubans coming in, you have to ask yourselves what is happening in Cuba right now that is creating these conflicts, because they're not necessarily coming to Belize to stay, right? They're trying to find countries that will provide bigger, grander opportunities. And with saying
People are
that
driven.
right.
People are driven by trying to find a better way of life.
Exactly.
Trying to find opportunities that allow them
Exactly.
to live better than how they're presently living.
I mean, a general situation of just extreme overpopulation, when there is just jobs that are saturated, there is no opportunity to work. You know, when I say what is happening in certain places could just be lack of opportunities, and that's why we have a large migration of Belizeans that go to the United States as well. So it's an investigation on that. It's an investigation on how we can be better partners to all of these other countries as well, and not just to make we deport everybody and done, right? It's a very difficult strategy, because Belize is in a space of good diplomatic relations with Cuba, all Central American countries, and the United States.
Yes. So, okay, that was our second item. The third item is equally as interesting, and this had to do with the confrontation on Sarstone River pre-Independence Day that gone last week or the week before,
What would the-
where the members of the Belize Territorial Volunteers set off to Sarstone Island, as has become customary, to plant the Belizean flag ahead of the Independence Day celebration. And so there was an altercation between the BTV and members of the Guatemalan Armed Forces. They are tasked with patrolling their side of the Sarstone River. And so in that scenario that played out, the Belizean flag was removed from Sarstone Island, and there was a request, a somewhat forceful request, for the flag to be returned to Belize. Right? It's not the property of Guatemala in any way, or the property of the soldiers that removed the standard from the island. And so through the diplomatic channels, once again, the request was made verbally in the first instance, and then formally in a written communique in the second instance, to have the flag returned to Belize. And so we have Foreign Minister Eamon Courtney, who spoke about this matter as well, and where we are in terms of the flag situation in the grander context of the Belize-Guatemala dispute that will be settled before the World Court in months or years to come. Here's that interview.
The Guatemalans turned over the flag. They knew that they could not keep the flag. They turned over the flag to our embassy. I had protested to the ambassador here verbally, and then we followed it up with a written protest. Listen to me. We are insistent that there be a Sarstone protocol. So far, we have not been able to convince the Guatemalans. Prime Minister Briceño and I had a meeting with the Secretary General of the OAS last week when we were in Washington, and earlier this week, when we were in Washington, and stressed the need for a Sarstone protocol. I will be meeting the Foreign Minister next week in Peru, in the margins of the OAS General Assembly, and he knows that we'll be putting on the agenda a Sarstone protocol. We need to avoid these incidents. Whether we succeed, we'll see. But with respect to the flag, they did not give any resistance in turning over the flag. We demanded the flag. They delivered it to the embassy. The embassy made arrangements for it to be brought to Belize.
It begs the question about, we have been discussing the Belize-Guatemala territorial claim, throughout our, you grew up with it, I grew up with it, we understand it to a certain degree. All Belizeans know ICG, like they should, right? It was everywhere. But I wonder how much of that is being, relayed to Guatemalan citizens. I wonder how much the average Guatemalan knows about the ICG and the Belize territorial dispute. And I say that to say that, the act of this, the blatant ignorant claim of this Guatemalan territory, therefore, we take your flag away. Any Belizean person would have known that doing something like that to Guatemala would have caused serious damages. And so I wonder about that kind of education. I really do. And it stems not just to...
Well, if you look at the situation historically, Guatemalans, by and large, have been taught Belize es nuestro, Belize is ours. So if you're looking at it in that context, then naturally they're being told from a very young age, and it's being repeated and hammered home in a manner of speaking, that Belize is part of Guatemala, or Belize is for Guatemala. So while on our end, we have our education process where we are being taught and we learn that Belize is a sovereign territory that gained independence in 1981, and Belize stands alone as a country, as a nation. On the other hand, they're being told, well, look, that is ours.
Right. I guess my question came from after ICG, because right now this is in court. How does this affect the case? What happens next? Though that's what goes through my brain, because now it's somewhere where the final decision will be made at some point. So then how are they being educated about that? We've gone through the process. It's already there. There's no stopping that,
if you're speaking of a broader context, and I know we
Yeah,
are
we
running out
did
of
until we
time
wrap
here,
up.
but if we're speaking on a broader context, right? If you look at what transpired over the past few days with Russia annexing certain parts of the Ukraine, then if there are certain territorial disputes and other countries are watching what's happening there, and perhaps it sets a certain precedence that, oh, this is okay and it can be done, or even if it's not okay, but we can do so by force, then look at the big picture. Look at you know, what could potentially happen.
You're absolutely right.
So
You're
we're looking at it
absolutely
from that point of view.
Yeah.
All right, so we have two quick things. I'm not going to prolong it. We had 2 murders over the weekend, one down south in Hopkins and the other in Benque Viejo. And so we will be covering those stories as well this evening at 6 p.m. All right, so that does it for our Eye on the News segment this morning. Certainly you can catch us on at 6 o'clock, on News 5 Live, and you can catch our content on social media via Facebook and YouTube.
At this point, you just need an eye on the news section. But we got to get into our show for this morning. We have a jam-packed session for you all today, and beginning with World Non-Violence Day. Shakira Young Forrester, the founder of Tyler Foundation, will be in studio to talk to us about her experiences and why the need for this particular foundation.
Our second segment, we will be joined by our friends from the Belize Tourism Board as they discuss the tax amnesty program for unlicensed tourist accommodation properties in the country.
And we have been discussing the census this entire year, and we will have the folks from SIB, the Statistics Institute of Belize, via Zoom to talk about the GDP, to talk about the census, surveys, and administrative statistics. So we'll be wrapping up OIE with that conversation this morning. But before we get into all of that, we are going to take a very short break, and we'll be back with the Tyler Foundation. So stay tuned.
Hola usuario de eCash, la aplicación eCash está disponible en español. Cambiar el idioma de tu aplicación de eCash de inglés a español es rápido y sencillo. Déjame mostrarte cómo se hace. Primero, abre tu aplicación eCash. Introduce tu PIN. Toca el icono More en la parte inferior de tu pantalla. Selecciona Security. Selecciona Language. Y luego selecciona Spanish. Vuelve a introducir tu PIN y ya está. Tu aplicación de eCash está ahora en español y puedes seguir disfrutando de tu cartera digital eCash. La aplicación eCash de Belize Bank te hace la vida más fácil.
Excuse me, sir?
Yeah.
But how can you pay with your phone?
B-Box.
What? What is B-Box?
B-Box have been his newest rewards program.
Really? Where I could get it from?
Man, check on the website bbox.bz or you could download it from the App Store. And if you still don't know, check that young lady there and she will hook you up.
I will surely do so. Good afternoon, miss. Can you hook me up with B-Box?
Everyone, including our elderly, needs to stay connected with their loved ones. With Smart's Golden Citizen broadband program, senior citizens can sign up for 10 megabytes of unlimited internet at a low monthly cost of $25. Citizens over 65 can sign up with a valid ID and receive free installation plus 1 month free on selected broadband plans. Visit a Smart showroom near you for more information on how you can enjoy Smart's Golden Citizen broadband program. Smart, bringing people together.
Great Belize Productions Channel 5, proud winner of 9 Caribbean Media Awards for 2021. Best Investigative Report, Best News Item, Best Coverage of People with Disabilities, Best Financial Literacy Journalism, Best Videographer, Best Television Commercial Spot, and the People's Choice Award, with 2 special mentions for Financial Literacy Journalism.
And welcome back. We have been joined on set for this particular segment this morning by Shakira Forrester. She is here this morning to discuss with us the work of the Tyler Foundation in the nonviolence context. Good morning, Shakira.
Good morning. Good morning. Good morning.
So, for some background, we'd like you to first of all share with us how the idea of the Tyler Foundation came about and how you were able to take a tragic situation that befell you and your family and make something of it to try to effect change in our society.
Well, the foundation came about after the death of my son, Tyler. He was 7 years old. One Friday morning, November 11, 2016, I dropped him off at school. And my intention was to pick my baby up from school the evening, or actually his grandmother's house. But that wasn't what the day had in store for me. He was at 4 o'clock, just about, or maybe 3:30, 3:45. I was called and told that I needed to go to the hospital because something had happened to Tyler. And I thought, okay, what happened? And so the person said, I don't want to tell you what happened, but I know that, he was with his cousin, and they're saying that they were shot, and so you need to go. And immediately, I felt so weak in my body, but I went, and I thought on my way there that it was just probably a bullet graze. It was just maybe an injury to the hand or the foot, nothing that would be life-threatening, so to speak. So I consoled myself with the fact that he's going to be okay. This is just another hiccup. It's going to be okay. But reaching there, as I got closer, it started to just come on me that maybe it can be worse, because I know his dad had passed 2 years prior to from gunshot injuries as well. And I'm thinking, okay, I'm going to be hopeful. Going into the hospital, we were told just wait outside. And so I did. And about less than 5 minutes, the doctor came out and she asked for the family of the boy. And I said, me. And she took me in a little room, and I was thinking, okay, I'm going to just get an update. And when she said those words, I am sorry, we did our best, my whole world changed. And it took me quite a while to get my stuff together, to get my head together, because I wasn't able to go home, I wasn't able to eat, I wasn't able to sleep. I was actually on sedatives for quite a while. And then I think for the most part of it, it was just being overtaken by grief, because he was everything for me. But still, because of my walk with God, because of the faith that I had, I said, God, you have control over everything, and so you allowed this for a reason. I know you didn't do it, but I know you allowed it. And so I said a simple prayer. Use this pain to bring glory to your name. And that was all I prayed. And I decided, how many other mothers in Belize are going through the same thing that I'm going through? Their sons may not be 7 years old. Their sons may not be innocent, but they have loss. A loss is a loss. And so I wanted to do something other than just living, other than just being a statistic, other than just sitting on the news crying. I wanted to do something that would impact our society and bring change, even if it was for just one person.
What is interesting about your story, Shakira, is because as a reporter, I covered it, right? And I remember that day clearly, right? And I did not have a son as yet. I only had a daughter, but being able to understand the pain that a parent would go through losing a child to a situation where it's not of his or her own doing. Because if I recall correctly, this was on Handyside Street, Daly Street, Handyside into Daly, and they were going to get
a milkshake.
A milkshake, right? And then this situation happened. And it's one of those situations, Shakira, where while we are covering it, you're still empathizing deeply because some of us have kids. Some of us, many of us have people that we go home to, or we have to go home to. And one cannot fathom this kind of situation until it happens to them, right? And I hope and pray that it never happens to me or to anybody else, right? But when you found yourself in the middle of that situation, and my question here may be a bit unsettling, but I'll ask nonetheless.
Shoot.
Your family, you are not foreign to the idea of tragedy.
No.
Because I have covered several stories where, you know, you're dealing with this kind of loss, these kinds of, you know, emotional shocks, so to speak. How do you bring that all together to move forward, particularly in the service of other people through your foundation?
I'll tell you honestly, it is something that takes only the grace of God, and it's something that takes resilience, because there have been times where I wanted to give up. There have been times when I thought I wasn't good enough, or God, is it really me that you want to use to do this? There have been times when even my family and I, we would be at odds, because with all the emotional trauma, everybody grieves differently. So there were times when my mother would become angry for no reason, and we would have to bear that lashing out. There were times when I wanted to isolate. There were times when I would lock myself in my room in the earlier part, and I would sleep under my bed because I just did not want to hear from anybody. And as of recent, we lost my youngest brother to gun violence. They went all the way in his house to kill him. And it's still hard for us, because we as a family know that we could have done better, but at the same time, we know that we still have to allow people to live the life that they want. And just recently, I remember going to pick up something, because I live in Los Lagos. I went to pick up something at the roadside, and there was this white hearse coming on the highway. And as I saw this hearse blinking its hazards, like, I started to shake. And as I started to shake, tears just started to roll down my face. And it took me back to that day where I had to be at the forensic office at the lab, looking at my brother being carted away in a body bag and then being placed in a hearse, a white hearse. And I'm thinking, okay.
So it's like a flashback of what you've experienced.
Yes. So I'm thinking, if this for me is hard, and I am a Christian, I could imagine what it is for those who don't have what I have. And so I think that if you are not somebody who is strong, who is fighting to make sure that I survive this, you might crash. And you might not die physically, but emotionally you will die. Spiritually you will die. You will find yourself in a very, very dark place.
So talk to us about taking on. I've just been listening to your stories and taking all of that in. How do you then take that pain to create the Tyler Foundation?
I wouldn't even say it's me taking the pain. I would say it's just by faith. It's something I can't explain, but it's like knowing that this is something that you have to do, even if there are days you don't want to do it, even if there are days that you get weary of doing it, even if you don't see the money to do it, you get up and you do it.
So talk to us about what it is and how you're using your experiences to help others.
One of the things that we pride ourselves in doing is to reach the children that most people would see as the forgotten. We try to work with the young people and even the mothers. That is my area that I try to focus on a lot, women, because I'm a woman. I've had a man, and I have a man now, a husband, and I know the power of influence a woman has in a household. And so if we are able to touch the lives of these women, help them to heal emotionally, help them to heal mentally, help them to heal psychologically, we will see a difference in the way the children are raised. So that is the area that I'm focusing on as it relates to the children. One of the things that we try to do very often is to let them know you're not forgotten. You see, grieving is something that is very funny. When I lost my son, though I was grieving, my entire family was affected by it. And I believe had I had another child, that child would have definitely felt neglected because it was hard. And could you imagine, based on the amount of murders that had happened this year, how many children, their mothers are just not coping well, and they feel forgotten, they feel lost, and that pushes them into the street, that pushes them into the gangs. We want to be able to touch base with these children as often as we can. If that means giving them a plate of food, yes. If that means giving them backpacks, yes. If that means having Christmas parties with them and giving them gifts and just spending time with them, we will do it. Just because we know that it's important to show them love and to let them know that somebody cares for you.
I think what is equally important in all of what you're setting out to do as a foundation, and I'm certain that you guys have this in mind if you're not already employing it, is to provide a listening ear as well.
Yeah.
Because sometimes while we're able to take kids on trips, while we're able to provide them with stationaries or Christmas toys and what have you, sometimes it's easy to forget that they just want someone that they could express themselves to in that particular moment, right? So opening up a gift may be a happy point in time, but if you're not really addressing how they feel based on that loss, then you're pretty much only masking. And I'm not saying your foundation,
No,
but
I
I'm simply
completely
saying
understand.
people generally
It's
like
a band-aid fix.
exactly,
It's a
right?
band-aid
And so
fix.
being able to engage with children and even in some cases young people and just listen to them. How do you feel? Right? And them sharing that with you. I think that's a legitimate start.
Yeah. It's nothing that, whatever a child may share, I will tell you sometimes it's nothing that I have not experienced because of the era I was raised. So it's not that I don't know or I don't understand. My issue is sometimes is that we don't have the resources,
Yeah.
right? I work closely with Miss Yolanda Welch from Rafa Hope Center. She's a Christian counselor. But there's only so much that we can do in reference to listening, in reference to giving that counseling, that advice, because I can bring them at that place where we work with them, but putting them back in the very same environment that wounded them is what is troubling, and that is why I've just been, you had asked the question earlier about getting an actual location, and that is why I'm thinking, okay, we need to have a place where these people can come and where they can feel safe and where they are not forced to go back, maybe where they're being abused, maybe where they're being mistreated or neglected. But I believe it will come in time, but it is something that I've learned that sometimes you can't save everybody because
And you can't save someone who doesn't want to be saved.
Or even so, they don't even realize that they have a problem. And it's so hard to help somebody that does not think that they have a problem.
So the kids and the mothers, right? So I want to focus on the mothers. Is it something that you would provide like a women's group, a counseling session? How does it work? How do we get in touch with you for this?
What we normally do is at least 2 times for the year, we would meet with women. And I would have Miss Welch come in and we would do sessions with these women where we will cover a broad area as it relates to their emotional wellness. That is very important, you know, for any woman and any person. It is important. And if identified that they need that one-on-one, then it is something that we recommend that they go and have sessions with her. Now, will they do it? We don't know. But we can refer them to say that, okay, maybe after the session they come and they say, you know what, Shakira, I really need help because this area stuck out to me. And I realized, man, I have anger issues, or I suffer with anxiety, or I might be going into a phase of depression. And so we will find things that will try to help them, but if they don't be consistent with it and they're not open with it, we cannot force them.
Is this something that if they're having this kind of trouble and you have that one-on-one session with them, or you talk to them, can they openly just come to you and say, I need this today, I need to speak to you today? Okay, yeah, so let's talk about how people get in touch with you for these sessions.
I have my cell number, which is 613-0821, but most people contact me on Facebook.
Okay.
They contact me on my my personal page, yes, because I use it a lot, and I believe that sometimes people would know based on what I post that maybe I post a scripture, maybe I post a testimony, and it helps them. They would reach out and be like, okay, that really helped me. I need help in this area. And I would definitely take the time out and have that discussion with them.
Have you ever encountered a situation where you felt that maybe perhaps I need to relay you to somebody else, maybe a different foundation or an organization? Maybe this is probably not in Shakira's area of expertise.
Most of the times, I'll tell you when I would refer. One, when I notice that there are deep things that I cannot deal with, I would refer. And there are times when there are physical needs that these people need that I cannot meet because it's just me, or the foundation does not have the fund to cover that. And I would have to refer them, or I would maybe call somebody to say, hey, I have this person here, they need XYZ, how can you help? Or I would just post on Facebook, hey, I need help. And I'll be honest, most of my support comes from friends, it comes from family, and it comes from certain business areas, businesses that support. So I do, yes, send out because I can't do everything.
In light of, we're talking about World Non-Violence Day, and just, I mean, we are talking about the tragedy surrounding your foundation, but how do you advise the Belizean citizens out there, or just people in general, to keep the course, to keep the faith in light of all that has transpired?
My word that I thrive on is love. It's just love. When you love, love stops you from doing so many different things. When you love, you don't hurt people intentionally. And even if you do, you're able to say, I'm sorry. And that is what we lack. We lack love. And if we as a people, we don't go back to the foundation of it, which is love, we will find ourselves and this country in years to come in a worse state. And so my advice to anybody who may be listening in is to go back to the root, go back to the foundation and find love. Love will help you to forgive. It will help you to overlook the offenses that people may cause to you. Love will allow you to be more confident in yourself, loving other people, and most importantly, loving God. Because when you allow yourself to be in that position of faith, it changes your whole perspective on life. How can somebody who lost her only child say, I'm willing to go and help somebody who has gone through the same thing with me, if it were not for love?
That's a spiritual journey in and of itself, though, in terms of being able to find peace within yourself, to be able to walk that path and help other people.
So what is your next step or your plans moving forward with the Tyler Foundation?
Well, we have upcoming this month. November 5th, a wellness conference that we're going to be having for women. It's Graves into Gardens, and this is where, just on this side, we have a little bit of the emotional areas that we will be touching. And this is to help our women heal. It is to put them at that place where they're able to stand a little bit firmer and say, I can do this. I can be the mother that my children deserves. I can be that sister. I can be that aunt. I can be that person in the community that brings a change and that brings a positive impact.
When is it? November 5th?
Yes.
It's going to be an all-day event. Is it going to be like a retreat?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So we want it to be an overnight thing, because we don't want to rush. Healing is a process. And so as we touch the different areas, we want to give the women a time to share, a time to fellowship, and also we want to get them all dressed up the night to go out and have just a nice dinner. Maybe they don't even have the time to do that at home. They're busy with the kids. So we want to take them away to just have that time of loving up on themselves and finding peace within themselves.
Shakira, I want to thank you so much for coming up here and talking to us about your story. That's not something easy for anybody to do. So thank you for sharing, and best of luck on your foundation.
Thank
and
you.
of course, if anybody wants to contact Shakira to see how they can help her with her foundation, they can find her on her personal Facebook page. It's Shakira Forrester on Facebook.
Yes.
Shakira Forrester on Facebook, and your cell phone number is
613-0821.
Thank you so much, Shakira.
You're welcome.
And with that, we are going to take our next break, and we'll be back with more Open Your Eyes, so stay tuned.
Technology is ubiquitous, and it's transforming how, when, and where we work. Fulltech Systems is placing award-winning devices in the hands of information workers, allowing them to work without compromise in a world without wires, to innovate, create, and to maximize productivity anytime, anywhere, satisfying the needs of the desk-centric remote and field worker and every other worker in between. We are providing the industry's best devices to businesses going through the process of digital transformation. Partner with us today to provide the solutions that will allow your employees to work effectively and efficiently to enhance your customers' experience. Fulltech Systems, your technology center, where you'll come for the price but stay for the service.
¿Reúnes los requisitos para la amnistía 2022? Esta es tu oportunidad de aplicar. En el sitio web www.immigration.gov.bz encontrarás una lista completa de todos los documentos necesarios para la amnistía según los criterios para los que eres elegible. Asegúrese de reunir todos los documentos generales y de respaldos necesarios y las traducciones necesarias. Haz tu cita en línea con cualquiera de nuestros centros de registro a nivel nacional. Ahí presentarás tus documentos y completarás las entrevistas requeridas. Después, se te entregará un recibo de aceptación. Mientras esperas una decisión sobre tu solicitud, puedes seguirlo en línea y saber cuándo será el pago en la oficina de tesorería del gobierno más cercana. Una vez completa, recibirás tu tarjeta de residencia permanente que muestra tu estado legal en Belice. Obtenga más información sobre la amnistía 2022 y cómo presentar tu solicitud en línea en www.immigration.gov.bz. Prepárate, el plazo de inscripción será del 2 de agosto al 30 de noviembre de 2022. Amnistía de Belice 2022. Continuemos construyendo Belice juntos.
If you have a baby on the way, here is what you need to know about maternity benefit. It includes both an allowance for 14 weeks and a grant, which is a lump sum of $300. The basic requirements are: you must be employed, you must have at least 50 paid contributions, and you must have continuous contributions leading up to delivery. To apply, a licensed doctor certifies the expected date of delivery. The employer completes the salaries record. Submit your completed claim form as soon as possible. After giving birth, submit your continuation claim no later than 3 weeks after delivery. If the mother does not qualify, the father of the child may qualify for the maternity grant. Want to know more about maternity benefit or grant? Visit our website or contact any of our offices to have someone assist you. Also, be sure to visit our Facebook page and give us a like to stay informed. Social Security Board, safeguarding you, your family, your future.
Great Belize Productions Channel 5, proud winner of 9 Caribbean Media Awards for 2021. Best Investigative Report, Best News Item, Best Coverage of People with Disabilities, Best Financial Literacy Journalism, Best Videographer, Best Television Commercial Spot, and the People's Choice Award, with 2 special mentions for Financial Literacy Journalism.
And we we are back with our second conversation this morning. The tax amnesty program, tax amnesty, but not just any tax amnesty. In studio with us, we have the representatives from BTB to talk about the tax amnesty program for unlicensed tourist accommodation properties. In studio with us, we have Abdul Castaneda, the Director of Quality Management and Capacity Development. Good morning.
Good morning.
And Denmar VR, the Registrar of Hotels.
Good morning.
Good morning. So I wanted to start off this conversation by talking about how do we even have unlicensed tourism accommodations in Belize? How does that happen?
Okay. The BTB is the regulator of the hotels, the tour operators, and the tour guides. We have unregistered properties because they sign up, they register with the online travel agents such as Airbnb, BRBO, Homestay, Home to Go, just to name a few. These are international vacation rentals. So now you have properties that simply just register with them online and they offer a product.
Okay.
Now we at the BTB normally would license and we look for minimum standards, we look for the quality of the rooms in general. So when we issue a license, and one of the most important things is the gold standard, which emphasizes on biosecurity and cleanliness. Now they register it just like that. There is no standard that might be followed. So now that is one. Secondly, they generate income and they do not pay taxes.
Right. So then how does the tourist, the traveler does not know, right? They just find a hotel and they book it and it's depending on cost, they stay there. So then how does the BTB track these types of properties?
Well, there are various ways that we can do it right now. There are a few platforms that we have where we can see where all the activity for Belize is happening from Airbnb, from VRBO, especially those two, which are the about 70 to 80% of the market here in Belize. But we're also working with, for instance, Airbnb. In fact, this month we have a follow-up session with them. We had recently signed an MOU for us to work with them to see how better we can establish a process. Right now for Airbnb, for instance, you don't have to show that you have a license from the BTB to be able to be registered. You don't have to pay any taxes for the BTB from at the Airbnb. So there's no real checks and balances there. So that's why we're working with them to be able to establish that from the get-go. So right now, and this is what has created sort of the need for this. Right now for many years, with these shared economy type of properties popping up, anyone could have gotten up, have an extra apartment or a room in there and could have registered to Airbnb and started a business. And so now, like many other destinations around the world, there's a process of formally introducing them into the system now. And this tax amnesty program is one initiative that the BTB is doing to incentivize those that have been operating without a license to now come into the system. Why? Because on the way it works is that if you come to apply to the BTB for a license, but you have been operating for years before, we as the BTB can look at all your books, at all your online reservations, and we can do a tax assessment on you to say, okay, over the last 2 years, if you've been operating, this is the amount of revenue you brought in, so this means this is the amount of hotel taxes you have to pay. And sometimes that could be quite considerable. So we decided as a means to incentivize and to promote these operators to come formally into the system, we provide to them a very short amnesty period so that they can come in, apply, and get their license the proper way.
So if I'm understanding this correctly, in essence, you're the regulator, right? So that all of these businesses that are operating out there in this capacity should by right come and be licensed. You go out and you do your checks and balances to ensure that there is quality control and what the visitors are getting is value for money by way of these particular rentals.
No, at the end of the day, that's pretty much what it is. It's about ensuring that there's a quality experience for all our visitors. And what Mr. Denmar was saying is that when we license you, we look at certain minimum requirements that you must meet, right? You were talking right before we started about going to Airbnbs outside of Belize where there was a proper service. You know, somebody was there to take care of you in case you needed anything. Now, that may not be the case here, but if you are licensed with the BTB, then there are certain minimum things that you have to be able to provide to ensure that there's a quality, there's a standard of operations and services you receive.
Beyond that as well, though, is the fact that the government has to be able to realize taxes from these kinds of businesses. Because if I, for instance, as using your example, Abil, if I come to think of it and I say, hey, but I have an extra room or I have an apartment that I could, you know, put out there as a overnight stay for whoever wants to use it, then there should be taxes that are applicable for that kind of service. But if I don't go through the regulator, then it's unaccounted for. And so that money comes in total to me, nothing for the government or you know, how that system works.
No, that's absolutely it, and especially coming out of COVID, you know, a lot of new businesses popping up. And so a lot of them are in the informal sector. So there has to be something we do to meet them halfway so that we can get them into the system and then move forward in developing the country. Because the shared economy segment of tourism is a very important one worldwide. I mean, the Ubers, the Lyfts, the Airbnbs, the VRBOs. This is a growing trend and it will continue because of its convenience, because of its availability. And so we as a destination and as regulator, we are cognizant of that. And so we try to put together this program, and it's not a long program either. It's really a window, very short window. Because after that window expires,
there'll be enforcement.
Then we will double up on enforcement, and by that time we have our processes with Airbnb and with the other platforms to say, okay, well, if you're not licensed, then you may be in not only operational trouble, but even in legal trouble, because there's laws in place. Our Hotels and Tourist Accommodation Act speaks to what are the penalties, what are the offenses, even up to summary conviction for someone that operates without a license.
So just for our viewers, walk us through what would count as a space where they would have to be able to write off that liability and to pay your defined amount. What would they have to be operating as?
You would have, so the law speaks to hotels, which is the traditional type of properties that you have, and then you have tourism accommodations. Tourism accommodation is a widespread, about 14, 15 different subcategories. So you have on there villas, camping grounds, religious and educational institutions, apartments, condominiums. So this particular program that we have is, as you see on the screen there, is specific to 3 typologies out of those 14 tourism accommodations. One is apartments. Right? Apartments or apartment studios. The other one is condominiums, and the other one are your vacation homes or room rentals. So the law says, just in general, if you have any space that you provide, you sell, you market to either a local or international tourist, right, for them to stay at your property or at your unit, even if it's a room, for tourism purposes and recreational purposes, then you are liable under that law to pay taxes and to be licensed.
So for the person that doesn't know, right, that they're staying at an Airbnb or they're staying at a vacation home, does the person then are they held accountable? Are they liable to?
You mean the guest itself?
The guest.
No, not at this time. It's more it's always so far the operator or the owner or the manager of that particular unit.
So what do they need to do in order to become licensed?
Okay, this accommodation is a short period. It's a 2-step, as you may see on the screen. The first step is they need to submit an application, which they can download from our BTB website. It's already on the website. The amnesty program launched October the 1st, and it will run through to December the 31st, but it's under a 2-fold. The first month, October only, all unregistered properties can download the application and they can submit it to the registrar, in this case myself. So now, during that period, they will get a response that they have been accepted into the program. Thereafter, they have until December the 31st to submit all documents required as though they were applying for a hotel license, because actually it's a hotel license that they're getting. They will need their fire, their health, their CBA, the permit. All of this is on our website, and they can download what the information is needed. But most importantly is that this first month, October, we need to get all of those applications. It's a short window because the law says once the window is closed, it's closed. So, and as you may note, this amnesty program is part of our tourism recovery strategy for Belize, where we are encouraging all unlicensed properties to get on board, to formalize themselves so that eventually they can avoid taxation issues or any legal issues that we may encounter. Because remember, the law says that if you're operating, you're hosting tourists, you are liable to host those tourists to such a standard. So that is where we say to avoid legal and tax issues. If you're hosting tourists, you need to pay your 9%.
So for the avoidance of doubt, there won't be sort of like a forensic investigation into how long you've been in operation and how much money you've made over that period of time. We're only going forward from this point, correct?
Okay, well, the name of this act is the Accommodation Tax Act, or a remission of arrears bill. What will happen if the unregistered property comes and registers with us? They will be given a pardon of all back taxes that were never paid or that were due, so we won't charge it. So come January 1st onwards, you pay your 9% and we're good to go.
And let's say that they sign up, but the BTB finds that their accommodation is not up to standard for your accommodation. What happens then?
Okay, whenever the Q&E inspectors, the quality and assurance inspectors go out, they give you a report and they give you a timeline on how you can make these improvements. And some improvements are basic things that can be done within a week, within 2 weeks. For example, there are some accommodations that offer a pool, a small plunge pool. By law, it is required that you have the depth of that pool printed, 3 feet. So something like that could be done within a couple of days. The law requires a certain size of mirror in the bathroom. Most of the time, this is one of the things that they lose points because they have a small mirror. That can be changed in a few days. So most of the time, the inspectors give you a time frame. They give you a report and they give you a time frame as to how fast you can change and you can come up to standard.
Say for structural, like serious stuff that you need to fix an entire room over, or you need to add a wing or what have you to do.
I mean that's why part of the process it asks you for permit, your approval letters from CBA, from the Central Building Authority, for instance, to show that your building is structurally sound. From the fire department to show that you are able to address any fire emergencies. There's emergency escapes and that type of thing. So health. If you have a restaurant in particular, may not really fit this typology here, but still. So those are some, really and truly what we have found is that the challenge for registration has always been more about consolidating and compiling the amount of the type of documentation you need to be able to get to the next step of actual inspection. So we are providing a short window for them to do that. We would hope that they would have already started some of that. A lot of them are just contemplating whether to register or not and may have already some documentation. So we look forward and we invite anyone really that is in this, believe that they're within these categories, and even these categories have specific definitions to them, which is established during the quality inspection that our team does. Because you may think you're an apartment or apartment studio, but you may be a vacation home or room rental, depending on the minimum requirements that are assigned to that. So again, the first step is to submit your desire to be considered for the amnesty program that we will do in this month. And so anyone that is interested, we ask them to go on our website or click on the link that's there on our social media Then to get that form, and that form goes directly to Mr. VR here, who then will look at your case and will determine whether or not you would be eligible to start to go under this program.
And everything can be done online.
Yes.
Yes, we're encouraging that everything is done online.
Yeah.
So, gentlemen, again, just for our viewers, how long is the program going to last? What all do they need to send in? And how do they know that they're viable for this tax amnesty?
Okay, the program will last 3 months. But like I said, it's a twofold program. Only for this month of October, they can submit their application to be accepted into the amnesty program. Only for the first month. And that after that, they by law cannot submit an application to be accepted into the program. Thereafter, for the month of November and December, that is where they have the time to get and submit all of the other paperwork, the Central Building Authority, Department of the Environment, the fire clearance, the health clearance, and the other required permits and documents. So it's a very short window. They only have basically 1 month to submit that application.
What happens when they don't? What happens to these small rental spaces that they don't do this?
Okay, if they do not submit and they do not apply, then as Mr. Abil said, we are finalizing, we have signed an MOU with Airbnb. What will happen on the long run is that then Airbnb will submit a list of all of those properties, and then we will then visit those properties, and then we will make back assessment. Say Airbnb says you have been operating for the past 5 years, then, and this is the income that this property has generated, then our tax auditors will make a tax assessment. If you have made $100,000 for the last 5 years, then it's subject to tax, 9%, penalties and interest. So we're giving it to you via this remission period as per se.
What is the visibility for this particular activity? Are you guys putting public notices out there? How do people find this information short of perhaps watching this particular show?
Okay, we have promoted it in our Facebook page. We are doing appearances on television. We are doing scroll ads on television. We are contacting via email several word of mouth. I mean,
the BTIAs and the DHAs and all of that. And at the end of the notice there, it particularly mentions the OTAs that we know. So if you want to know if you're eligible for this program, one of the first questions could be, do I currently work with or sell one of my units on the Airbnb or VRBO? If I do that, then we would encourage you to call into the BTB or reach out to Mr. Denmar. His email is at the bottom of the notice there that you can find on our social media. And they will then be able to advise you, you know what, yes, you would be eligible for this. So please take advantage of it, because as Mr. Denmar said, you know, when January comes around and you're not licensed, and we are now able to get an understanding of who all is operating in Belize under Airbnb, and we're trying to establish a similar agreement with VRBO, then our tax auditors and our enforcement team will come in, and then you will be in a lot of trouble in terms of taxes, and even if you run the risk of being shut down completely, you know, if you don't comply. So these are again, it's a great opportunity, we believe, as a part of the recovery process, trying to formalize some of those businesses that started up during the COVID pandemic, but even before. But we encourage those that are in this wanting more information to please just reach out to the registrar and to the BTB and see maybe if they would be eligible. And the reason for that is that we only committed to 3 types of the 14 types. You would see hotels not in there, resorts are not in there either. And the reason for that is that these are the 3 typologies that we find are much more common in using platforms like Airbnb and VRBO.
Thank you, gentlemen, so much. And of course, if you want more information, you can head on to the BTB website and find out more. Gentlemen, thank you and best of luck. I guess before the ending of the program, I'm going to come back and be like, hey, there's only one more month left. But with that, we're going to take another break and we'll be back with more OI.
With eCash, bill payment is extremely convenient, and all utility companies accept eCash payments. What's even better? You get to split bills with your roommates, siblings, or whoever you desire. Simply open your eCash app, go to Bill Pay, tap the respective utility company, enter the information, and pay the bill. Then tap the transaction made. Tap Split the bill. Select Evenly. Send the request to who you are splitting the bill with, and get notified when they pay. Talk about making life easy and avoiding confusion. You can split the bill for restaurants, grocery stores, and for any eCash payment you make. To find your next yummy meal, hair treatment, or chill spot, simply open the app and utilize the geolocation service to see nearby businesses that accept eCash. Geolocation and bill payment make life a whole lot easier.
Off goal, what a goal from Leo Messi! What an incredible strike from Leo Messi! Neymar and Messi is standing over this. Messi! Off goal, what a goal from Leo
Great entertainment stays with you, and we bring you great entertainment. Next Gen, the ultimate digital experience.
Everyone, including our elderly, needs to stay connected with their loved ones. With Smart's Golden Citizen broadband program, senior citizens can sign up for 10 megabytes of unlimited internet at a low monthly cost of $25. Citizens over 65 can sign up with a valid ID and receive free installation plus 1 month free on selected broadband plans. Visit a Smart showroom near you for more information on how you can enjoy Smart's Golden Citizen broadband program. Smart, bringing people together.
Are you looking for low-cost television advertising? Have we got a deal for you? Advertise on Channel 5's Daily Classifieds. Channel 5's Daily Classifieds is one of the most effective methods for introducing yourself and your business to the community. Use our Daily Classifieds to recruit employees, promote specials, promote your products or services, promote a business opportunity, increase traffic to your website, and advertise items you have for sale. Let us help you to save valuable time and money. Call us today at 280-0013 or visit us at our offices on Coney Drive to discuss how we can help your business grow affordably. Channel 5's Daily Classifieds. Advertise today.
are back with our last conversation for this morning. Joining us via Zoom, we have the folks from the Statistical Institute of Belize. Joining us via Zoom, we have Mr. Hefte Ochaeta, a statistician at the Economic Statistics Department at SIB, and Tanisha Chavaria, the acting manager of Census, Surveys, and Administrative Statistics Department at SIB. Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
All right, so I want to start off first with talking about the last presentation that you gave on the GDP, the gross domestic product. Before I get into that, walk us through how SIB manages to come up with this data.
Okay, good morning. My name is Hefte Ochaeta. So we released our information for the second quarter GDP of 2022, and also we released our update information of the consumer price index and the imports and exports for merchandise trade statistics that we produce. So if you wouldn't mind, I could probably just give you a preview of those other two economic indicators, which are related to the GDP anyways. So for the month of August 2022, we reported that the consumer price index increased by an average of 7.4% higher than in the month of August 2021. That's in general. And with our merchandise trade statistics, as of August 2022, we're seeing that Belize imported about 20.8% more with respect to the same year compared to the same month, in the previous year. And our exports have decreased significantly compared to the same month of 2021. They're down by 44.5%. So all of that information is part of our gross domestic product. Our gross domestic product takes into account prices and takes into account actual production and exports. So how we arrive at our valuation of the gross domestic product is that we try to gather information from all different areas in the country, in different sectors, being the government, being business sectors or NGOs, and we arrive at a number that is an estimate more or less of where we stand in our current situation in the economy. So as of right now, we can say that the second quarter of 2022 shows that there is the second quarter of 2022 shows that there is an increase of 13.5% with respect to the previous year, 2021. However, also we have an update on the production for the year 2021. I thought it was here, but it's not here. So, which gives us a new valuation of where we stand. Okay. What happened in the production for the year 2022 for the second quarter is that we saw a contraction in the primary activities, that of 7.9%, or about 8.7 million decrease, mainly due to the crops produced by sugarcane, banana, and there was a reduction also in the livestock production. There was a slight increase in the secondary sector activities, that of 1.5%. This is mainly attributed to increased beverage production and other food products that were manufactured. And also we saw a slight increase in citrus manufacturing and processing. And obviously the significant impact to the rural economy came from the services, or what we call the tertiary activities, which increased by 17.3%, or about 120.9 million, which was mainly due to the increases that were observed in the hotels and restaurants and the trading component of the economy, which is your wholesale and retail sectors. Yeah.
So
That's basically what.
Right. I know that for those that work at SIB, the numbers make sense to them, right? But the numbers may not make sense to the average folks. So I think I wanted to tap into why is it that Belizeans should be up to date with this kind of information? How does it affect us? Why is it important for us to understand GDP? I know that we were talking about the consumer index and how much we have been spending on certain items, but we don't really think about that on a daily basis. So how does this data impact Belizeans, and why should we be aware of it?
Well, at a personal level, the information is useful because it can help you make proper decisions on what you will do with your life. So if you would want to invest, if you would want to diversify what you're doing, if you would want to move from probably your current employment status that you have, if you would be willing to take the risk and start to entrepreneur, all of that you would do in a correct manner with the information that you produce. So that's the way it will impact us.
Let's get Tanisha into the conversation at the moment with respect of the census. Where are we with the count? And perhaps what are some of the challenges you guys are facing in terms of getting this information?
Good morning, thanks.
Good morning.
Yes, so presently we have completed data collection in several regions in the country, and that is Corozal, Orange Walk, San Ignacio, and Toledo. We're still ongoing with data collection in Belize, San Pedro, Belmopan, surrounding areas, and Sand Creek. The challenges that we have been facing mainly relates to recruitment, as we were not able to recruit the entire persons that we need to conduct the census in the time that we had proposed. Nevertheless, we're still ongoing with data collection, and we plan to wrap up by November of this year and have the final counts ready to be released at June 2023.
So when we're looking at the census, it's more than just a national count. It's a look at certain demographic information and other trends or what have you in people. Can you expand on that for us, Tanisha?
Of course. The census is the one chance that we have every 10 years to collect a wealth of information on the population. It's not only getting a count of how many persons are residing in the household and give that information according to male or female. We also collect information on educational attainment, on nutrition, on crime, economic activity, disability. There's a wealth of information there that gives a very robust and holistic picture of the population, and the census is that one opportunity to do that every 10 years, and it will guide policy making and decision making for the next 10 years until we conduct another census.
What has been the apart from recruitment and so forth, what has been the ongoing I guess issue when it comes to data collection in places like Belize City, San Pedro, and Belmopan?
The main challenge is recruitment, as we have not been able to retain the number of staff that we initially recruited. So we started off with about 60% of the staff that we needed to conduct the census. And then since then, we have been experiencing challenges with retaining them, mainly due to competition from other recruiters, which would mainly be the call centers. We have been competing with the call centers to keep the persons recruited in the census. And then as it relates to the time that we have been able to find persons at home, we try to have the interviewers go out after 5 o'clock and on the weekends. In Belize City, there's definitely the concern with the safety of our interviewers. But we have been communicating and working along with different organizations within these communities so that the interviewers feel safe going out. We have been receiving support from organizations like the police department. In other districts, we have gotten support from Coast Guard, from fisheries. We have been receiving a lot of assistance with navigating through these challenges. And we want to encourage persons to respond to our interviewers, especially the first time that they attempt, or feel free to make an appointment with the interviewer so that they can schedule out their work and visit you at the most convenient time so that we can wrap up the census in November of this year.
Was there any conversations to probably move the census online? Perhaps that would be a way of assisting, because also I also realized that students started back to school as well, and school is now face-to-face, and so they can't really be recruiters anymore. So is there any conversations about moving the census to something that people can do online?
It's definitely something for future consideration for maybe the census that we do 2030. However, for 2022, the main challenge is that we don't have the infrastructure to be able to carry out an online survey, because mainly due to concerns over the coverage and the quality of the census, it's that if we're receiving online questionnaires, then it would be difficult to control from which household that came from. And to control over counting. So we did in the
checks and balances would be greater.
Infrastructure as yet, but let's cross our fingers for 2030 to be able to do an online census.
So given the challenges with the population and housing census, we're aware that you're also rolling out the labor force survey. So how are you planning to maneuver that so that the same challenge doesn't happen again?
Labor force survey is different when compared to the census, because the labor force survey, it requires a very small reference period of 4 weeks, so that we are able to produce economic statistics over that. It's a snapshot of the labor force at that time. Now, to overcome that, we definitely have been experiencing similar challenges to the census with recruitment. So we have been recruiting relief interviewers that would step in to cover in the case of somebody dropping out or finding a full-time job. And that has been helpful so far, getting a surplus of interviewers and training them. And we also have our staff and field supervisors going out with the teams, meeting with the households, encouraging them to participate. And that's how we have been overcoming the challenges that we saw in the census, so that we don't see it again for the labor force survey.
So for the purpose of public information, the census comes to a close in November. The data won't be released formally until June 2023. What happens in the intervening months in terms of processing the information and collating it?
So the first thing that we do as soon as we wrap up the data collection is to wrap up the editing coding section. So that would be looking at certain response categories and connecting it with the international codes that apply to it. So that would normally be in economic activity, in education, and that will take us up to early January. After that, we would then do merging, cleaning of the data, run some validations, and then we would apply some statistical techniques to the data where we would make some adjustments to the data. And from there, we would extract the preliminary results from the census and write our reports and have that prepared for June of next year. So because it's a census, it's a very large data set. It does have its different steps of cleaning, validation, and merging that we have to do, which will take us a bit of time to do. But, you know, in June of next year, which is very close, we will have the preliminary results ready.
All right. Is there any other statistics that the SIB would like to share with us this morning with our viewers?
Yes, we have Mr. Hefner here, who has a wealth of statistics that we just released last week, Wednesday, that he's able to share with you.
Give us the numbers, Mr. Hefner.
Yes, again, sorry. So we jumped through it, right? So I was mentioning the prices for the month of August. We released an update on the inflation rate, which is at 7.4% for the month of August compared to the previous year. Mainly this is due to rise in fuel prices and food, and also restaurant services and household and cleaning products. That's the main increase that we're seeing for the month of August. The cumulative inflation, that is from January up to August, stands at 6%. Compared to the previous years. And again, what is influencing this raise in the inflation has to do with your transportation services, which are influenced directly to fuels and also to the food, which has been increasing. For the month of August, we saw the highest inflation rate reported for the year in food, which went up by about 8.2%. So that's very high. And in itself, food category went up by 9.6% compared to the previous year. So things that are affecting this is your daily basket, you know, cooking oils, cereals, meats, eggs, which have been on the rise. That's what we saw from the consumer price index. From the merchandise trade statistics, which deals with your imports and exports, for the month of August, we imported a total value of $230 million, which is an increase of $39.6 million to the previous year. This increase is basically because we're importing more machinery and transport equipment, food and live animals, and stuff into the commercial free zone. For the first 8 months, the cumulative imports is at a figure of $1.768 billion, which is an increase of 34.8% from the previous year. And for the month of August, we have reported that there was a total value of $35.2 million in our exports commodities, which is a decrease of 44.5% from the previous year, 2021, yes. And this decrease is because we saw less exports of sugar and banana.
And again,
so that's basically what we have so far, right? Then I was mentioning that we have an update on our statistics, on our GDP, which we have a revised number for the year 2021, which you can access in our website.
Okay. And just to wrap it up with your statistics, Mr. Ochieta, when it comes to how often you all research and develop these numbers, is this a yearly, bi-monthly, every 6 months? How do you develop these statistics? And
okay, so we have control over 2 items, which is the consumer price index and the merchandise trade statistics. we produce this on a monthly basis because we have full control over them. The Consumer Price Index is a retail store survey, which we send our surveyors throughout the country to monitor the prices. The merchandise trade statistics, we have a working relationship with the Customs Department, and we're able to access the database live. So we're able to see what's happening on a daily basis, and that allows us to produce the statistics every month for the Consumer Price Index and the merchandise trade statistics. When it comes to the gross domestic product, as you're taking into account everything that is produced and consumed in the country of Belize, the domestic economy, that is a bit more different. So that takes a little longer due to the fact that, as you know, it will be more difficult to access the data. So we would normally give it about 12 weeks at the end of a given quarter for us to have the numbers available for the gross domestic product, because we have to access the information on production and also on financial reports that are shared with us. So all of that information takes a little while to compile. Yeah.
All right. And of course, we want to tell our public, our viewers, that they can always access these statistics at the SIB website at sib.org. Yes? All right. Mr. Hefte, Ms. Tanisha, thank you both so much for joining us via Zoom. Next time, we hope to have you in studio. And I think that we will also have you guys back to give us the update on the census. Thank you both so much for joining us this morning.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And with that, we're going to take our final break, and we'll be back to wrap up the show. So stay tuned.
Galenia Hospital, located in Cancun, Mexico's premier tourism destination, is a state-of-the-art healthcare facility that provides highly specialized medical services. We are Quintana Roo's biggest private hospital with board-certified doctors and staff. Some of our services include cath lab, adult intensive care unit, neonatal intensive care unit, emergency rooms, operating theaters, ambulance services, and more. We are a medically accredited hospital by JCI, Accreditation Canada International, and General Health Council, providing extraordinary care in every specialty, from our cardiology department to our neurology center. We are focused on treating the entire person, body, mind, and spirit. Contact us at medicaltourism@hospitalgalenia.com or visit our website at www.hospitalgalenia.com. Come to Galenia Hospital in Cancun for a truly personal medical care experience.
Everyone, including our elderly, needs to stay connected with their loved ones. With Smart's Golden Citizen broadband program, senior citizens can sign up for 10 megabytes of unlimited internet at a low monthly cost of $25. Citizens over 65 can sign up with a valid ID and receive free installation plus 1 month free on selected broadband plans. Visit a Smart showroom near you for more information on how you can enjoy Smart's Golden Citizen broadband program. Smart, bringing people together.
Just got a lot less complicated with Belize Bank Contactless MasterCard Debit Card. Introducing our Standard Debit and MasterCard Platinum Debit Cards. Now you can make purchases anywhere MasterCard is accepted with one tap, pay and go. Your contactless card never has to leave your hands, especially in these times. And your card is embedded with multiple layers of security. Platinum card holders get to enjoy extra benefits like price protection, purchase protection, trip inconvenience, and luggage protection, just to name a few. Start enjoying a cashless lifestyle today with the Belize Bank.
lows on Open Your Eyes.
I'm glad you qualified it by saying on Open Your Eyes.
Well, yeah, because I usually say it and then it's like, we have to go to work. So thank you all to our guests for tuning in this morning. We had various conversations about World Nonviolence Day, the tax amnesty program from BTB, and of course wrapping things up with an update from the Statistical Institute of Belize. And of course we want to thank all of you, our viewers, for tuning in this morning. Before we go, we have a birthday shout out, and we want to say a very happy special OYE birthday to
Tanisha Garai.
Garai. Happy birthday from your family and your friends, and from all of us here at Open Your Eyes. Do have a blessed birthday. And if you have a birthday shout out or just any questions and concerns, you can always drop us a line right here at oye@channel5belize.com. You can catch our live stream on Facebook at Open Your Eyes BC and our highlights on Instagram at OYE Belize. Make sure you tune in tomorrow when you open your eyes
To start your morning right.
Be sure to keep your eyes, your minds,
And your hearts open.
Have a safe and blessed Monday, Belize. We'll see you tomorrow. Bye.
Open Your Eyes was brought to you by the Belize Bank. Our country, your